Here's something that should make every Hollywood executive nervous. A new AI startup claims it can read a film script, just the words on the page, and tell you whether that movie will be a hit or a flop before a single camera rolls. The company is called Quilty, and it was founded by two industry veterans, Simon Horsman and Daniel Wood. They say their system has analyzed thousands of screenplays and learned the hidden patterns that separate a box office smash from an expensive disaster. Think about what that means. Right now, a studio might spend $200 million making a film, betting on gut instinct, a famous director, and a few test screenings. Quilty wants to replace that guesswork with a score, a number that says, this script has the DNA of a winner. It's a bit like a weather forecast for movies. The forecast doesn't control the storm, but it tells you the odds before you leave the house. And the founders aren't outsiders throwing rocks at the industry. They've worked in the business, raised money, and made films themselves. So when they say the old way of greenlighting movies is broken, people actually listen. But can software really judge art? Can a machine feel whether a story will move you to tears or bore you to sleep? That's the question everyone's asking right now. And here's where it gets interesting. Understand why Quilty matters. You have to understand how broken movie greenlighting really is. For a century, deciding which films get made has been one of the riskiest bets in all of business. Studios read piles of scripts, trust a handful of senior executives, and basically gamble. And the failure rate is brutal. Most films lose money. The industry only survives because a few giant hits, think a billion-dollar blockbuster, pay for all the flops around them. It's the same logic as venture capital, where one huge winner covers 9 losers. Now, people have tried to fix this with data before. Studios run test screenings where they show an unfinished film to a recruited audience and hand out comment cards. They track social media buzz. They hire consultants who claim to know what audiences want. But all of that happens late, after tens of millions are already spent shooting the thing. By then you can tweak an ending. But you can't unmake the movie. What's genuinely new here is the timing. Quilty wants to move the prediction all the way to the very start, to the script itself, before anyone is hired, before a set is built. That's the holy grail studios have chased for decades. Cheap, early, and based on the one thing every film begins with, the story on the page. The founders saw that gap and built a tool to fill it. But how on earth do you teach a machine to read a screenplay? That's where the real engineering begins. So how does a piece of software actually judge a screenplay? Let's break it down in plain English. At its heart, Quilty uses a large language model, the same family of AI that powers chatbots like ChatGPT. These models are trained by reading enormous amounts of text until they learn patterns in how stories are built. Quilty feeds its system thousands of real scripts, both the hits and the flops, and lets it study what they have in common. Pacing, character arcs, how fast the tension rises, where the emotional beats land, whether the dialogue crackles or drags. Imagine a chef who has tasted 10,000 dishes. They can sip a sauce and instantly tell you it needs more salt, not because they measured it, but because their palate has seen every variation. Quilty is trying to build that same palate, except for storytelling. The output isn't just a thumbs up or thumbs down. The founders describe detailed feedback, flagging a slow second act, a weak villain, a confusing middle stretch where audiences typically lose interest. It reads more like notes from a brutally honest script editor who never sleeps and has read every movie ever made. And it does in minutes what a human reader might take days to do across a single script. One person can only get through so many. A machine can read the whole slush pile overnight. But raw pattern matching has a famous blind spot. And that blind spot is exactly where this story gets complicated. Let's make this concrete with the kind of thing Quilty claims to catch. Picture a script that looks great on the surface. Big concept, a famous writer attached, a marketable title. A studio reader loves the first 30 pages and recommends it. But Quilty's analysis flags a problem buried on page 70. The main character stops making choices and just reacts to events for 20 straight pages. To a tired human reading at midnight, that's easy to miss. To a system trained on thousands of stories, it's a flashing red light, because passive heroes are one of the most reliable killers of audience engagement. That's the sort of pattern the AI is built to surface. Or take the opposite case. A small, strange script that every human reader passes on because it feels weird and risky. The machine notices it shares a structural fingerprint with a string of sleeper hits, films nobody expected to work that quietly made $300 million. Suddenly, that risky script looks like a smart bet. The founders argue this is the real value, not replacing human taste, but catching what tired humans overlook and giving overlooked stories a fair shot. Now, they've been careful in interviews. They're not claiming a perfect crystal ball. They frame it as raising the odds, turning a wild gamble into a slightly more informed one. Even nudging a studio's hit rate up by a few percent would be worth a fortune across a whole slate of films. But here's the twist nobody expected. Now let's compare this to what already exists, because Quilty isn't the first to try predicting hits, and the differences really matter. Years ago, a company called Epagogix used neural networks to forecast box office returns from scripts, and a few studios quietly tried it. Netflix took a completely different route. Instead of judging the script, it watches you, tracking what hundreds of millions of viewers actually click, pause, and binge. Then using that data to decide what to make next. That's prediction by audience behavior, not by reading the story. Think of it like two doctors. One examines the patient directly, the script itself. The other studies the health records of millions of similar patients, the audience data. Quilty is firmly the first kind. It looks at the screenplay on its own terms before any audience exists, and that's its big bet. Today's language models are far more powerful than the clunky systems of a decade ago. A modern model can grasp nuance, tone, and theme in a way older tools simply couldn't. The founders are betting that this leap in capability is what finally makes script analysis trustworthy. But there's a catch that haunts every system like this. These models learn from the past. They learn what worked before. So what happens when they are asked to judge something genuinely new, a film unlike anything that came before it? That tension sits at the very heart of the debate. And this is where things get surprising. Here's what's really at stake, and it goes way beyond one startup. If tools like Quilty work even moderately well, they could quietly reshape what movies get made at all. And that worries a lot of people in the industry. The fear is simple. If a machine learns that certain story shapes succeeded in the past, it'll naturally favor more of the same. The bold, the strange, the original, the films that break the mold might score badly precisely because nothing like them existed before. Feed the industry a tool that rewards the familiar, and you risk a flood of safe, samey movies. Critics call this the homogenization problem. It's like training a music app only on past #1 hits. It might get very good at spotting the next predictable pop song and completely miss the weird genre-bending album that defines the next decade. Writers have another worry, their work being reduced to a score. Imagine pouring 3 years into a screenplay, only to have it rejected because an algorithm gave it a 62 out of 100. No conversation, no human champion, just a number. The founders push back hard on this. They insist Quilty is a tool for humans, not a replacement, a way to start conversations, not end them. The intent is to help good scripts get noticed, not to crush them. But intent and outcome aren't always the same thing. Once a number exists, executives tend to hide behind it. And that human temptation is the part most people overlook entirely. So what does this actually mean for you, whether you're a writer, a film fan, or just curious where AI is heading? Let's get practical. First, if you write anything, scripts, novels, even pitches, understand what these tools are really measuring. They reward clarity of structure. A clear main character who wants something, obstacles that escalate, and a satisfying turn. That's not an AI trick. That's storytelling craft that's worked for thousands of years. Learn the fundamentals, and you'll score well with humans and machines alike. Second, treat any AI score as one opinion, never a verdict. If a tool flags your slow second act, that's worth a hard look. But if it dismisses your bold original idea, remember the machine only knows the past. It can't recognize the future you're trying to invent. Use the feedback, ignore the final grade. Third, watch how studios adopt this. The healthy version uses AI to find overlooked gems and surface honest notes. The unhealthy version uses it as an excuse to greenlight only safe bets. As a viewer, the kinds of films you actually pay to see send a signal back up the chain. Reward originality, and the data slowly starts rewarding it too, and keep some perspective. We've heard predictions before that data would crack creativity. It never fully has. The messy, surprising, deeply human spark in great stories has a habit of dodging every formula thrown at it. So where does all of this leave us? Let's bring it home. So here's what this all means for you and what to watch for next. Quilty represents a genuine shift, the moment AI stopped just helping make movies and started trying to decide which ones deserve to exist. Whether that's exciting or terrifying probably depends on whether you make films or just love watching them. The honest takeaway is this: these tools will get better, and studios chasing certainty in a brutally risky business will absolutely use them. A few percent better at picking winners is worth hundreds of millions across a year of releases. So this isn't a passing fad, it's the start of a long shift in how stories get chosen. But the deepest question stays gloriously unanswered. Can a machine that only knows what worked before ever recognize the thing that's never been done? Every great leap in cinema, the films that changed everything, broke the existing rules. A tool built on the past, by definition, struggles to see that coming. So watch for two things in the months ahead: which studios adopt this openly, and whether the movies that follow feel bolder or blander. That'll tell you everything about which future we're walking into. If this look inside the machines reshaping our world fascinated you, follow for daily AI news. We break down one of these stories every single day. The future's arriving fast, and it's better to see it coming. I'm Riff. I'll catch you in the next one.